Good evening. You're tuned into To The Point here on India Today. I'm Akshita Nandagopal, and this evening we're going to be talking about a wild term that's being thrown left, right and center. Sanatan se juda. It's actually happened in Udaipur, and despite that, there have been multiple such provocations, multiple incidents of this term being used. The latest is of the man you see on your screens, Mahant Raju, making a comment of Sanatan se juda with regards to the filmmaker behind the poster of a smoking Maa Kaali. This comes just 24 hours after action has been taken against the Ajmer Dargah Khadim. He's been taken into custody, Salman Chishti, for putting out a video statement in which he used this very term of Sanatan se juda against Nupur Sharma. Action has been taken against him. What about this particular case? That's what we're going to be talking about on this edition of To The Point. Let me bring in also our guests who are joining us this evening. Joining us this evening is Mahant Raju, Mahant of the Hanuman Garhi temple in Ayodhya. We also have with us Deepa Ishwar, activist, who is joining us this evening. Let me begin with Mr. Raju Das. Raju Das ji, namaste. आप महंत हो, क्या आपको लगता है ऐसे शब्द इस्तेमाल करना संतन से जुड़ा ठीक है?
पहले तो धर्म की वजह से जितने भी आपके दर्शक हैं उनको ढेर सारा आशीर्वाद। देश में अमन चैन शांति बना रहे। विषय गंभीर है। हमने जो कहा हमारी बात को कोई समझा नहीं। कहने का मतलब ये था कि जिस प्रकार से पूरे देश का माहौल खराब है। आप देखो कि नुपुर शर्मा जी ने टीवी चैनल के डिबेट पे हमारे आराध्य हमारे भगवान भोले के बारे में किसी ने उल्टी सीधी टीका टिप्पणी किया तो उस पर उन्होंने क्या दोनों लोग के बीच में जवाब दिया। उसके बाद से देखिए कि पूरे देश में बड़े बड़े मौलाना, बड़े बड़े धर्मगुरु, बड़े बड़े मदरसे क्या कहा संतन से जुदा। पूरे देश में आग लगा दिया। थाना, पुलिस, चौकी, मार करना, पीट करना, जो पुलिस की वर्दी फाड़ देना और पत्थरबाजी करना, पूरा देश का यह माहौल बना हुआ था। अभी देखिए उदयपुर की घटना को आप देख लीजिए, महाराष्ट्र की घटना देख लीजिए। संतन से जुदा लोगों ने कत्ल कर दिया, काट दिया। बड़े बड़े मुल्ला, बड़े बड़े मौलवी कोई रोड पे ना आए, किसी ने इस चीज का प्रतिकार नहीं किया, विरोध नहीं किया। किसी ने ये नहीं कहा कि यह देश संविधान से चलेगा, तलवार की नोक पे नहीं चलेगा। तो इस बार अभी तत्काल की घटना है, लीना ने जिस प्रकार से जगत जननी मां जगदम्बा के मुख में सिगरेट रख के क्या दर्शाना चाह रही थी। ये तो मैंने उनसे कहा ना कि देश के यशस्वी प्रधानमंत्री जी से मांगे कि इनके खिलाफ सख्त से सख्त कार्रवाई हो। पूरा देश का माहौल देखिए क्या बना हुआ है।
जो आपने पहले बोला वो सही है, वो बिल्कुल सही है कि we've seen so much of violence happening around the country, लेकिन उस वक्त में आपको ऐसे शब्द यूज करना क्या ठीक है?
नहीं,
जब उदयपुर में ऐसे एक हत्या भी हुआ था।
जी मैं बता रहा हूँ। मैं ये कह रहा हूँ कि मैंने उनको लीना को ही कहा कि आप देश की क्या स्थिति बनाना चाहती हो। जो लोग संतन से जुदा कर रहे हैं, आप क्या नौजवानों को पुनः बरगलाना चाह रहे हो? जो मन में लोग उकसाएं उनको आग लगाएं कि हाँ वो भी रोड पे आ जाए, वो भी संतन से जुदा की बात करने लग जाए। कौन गलत बात हमने कह दिया? कौन सी गलत बात कह दी कि लीना को किसने अधिकार दिया सनातन धर्म संस्कृति की मजाक उड़ाने का, हिंदू देवी देवताओं के
अधिकार कोई नहीं दिया,
आग लगाने का
अधिकार कोई नहीं दिया। राजूदास जी, बहुत गुस्सा है सब लोगों में, लेकिन ऐसे शब्द इस्तेमाल करना संतन से जुदा, दैट्स अ वायलेंट कॉल, दैट्स अ मर्डरस कॉल। और जब उदयपुर में ऐसे हुआ है तो क्या ठीक है ऐसे शब्द यूज करना?
नहीं, हमने ये कहा कि क्या आप देश का ऐसा माहौल चल रहा है और क्या आप लोगों को ऐसे इस रास्ते पे उकसाना चाह रहे हो क्या? ये तो मैंने उनको कहा कि इस रास्ते पे लोगों को आप क्यों उकसाना चाह रही हो कि लोग और आगे आ जाए, कहें संतन से जुदा। आपके लिए भी लोग नारा लगाने लगे। यही चीज तो मैंने कहा। कौन सी गलत बात हमने कहा दी है भाई? मैंने तो ये तो कहा नहीं कि लीना का सर काट के ले आओ। जो लीना का सर काट के ले आएगा अरबों रुपया, करोड़ रुपया मैं इनाम में दूंगा। जो मुस्लिम धर्मगुरु बोल रहे, मैं ये तो नहीं कहा ना। मैंने कहा देश का माहौल बहुत खराब चल रहा है। एक कौम के लोग इस प्रकार से पूरे देश में माहौल क्रिएट कर दिए हैं। आप तत्काल में तुरंत अभी घटना हुई नहीं। आपको कौन सी जरूरत थी ऐसी पिक्चर बनाने का? आपको कौन सी जो है लोगों ने ऑथराइज कर दिया हिंदू देवी देवताओं की?
जब आप बोलते हो राजूदास जी, आपने इसी शब्द को इस्तेमाल किया, क्या चाहते हो तुम्हारा भी संतन से जुदा हो जाए, यही कहना था ना आपको? ये आपको ठीक लगता है?
नहीं, यही मैं नहीं,
जब अभी इस समय पूरे देश में युवा ऐसे प्रोवोक हो रहा है कि हथियार ले रहे हैं, मर्डर्स हो रहा है, किलिंग्स हो रहा है, इस समय में ऐसे शब्द यूज करना और ऐसे सेंटेंस यूज करना आपको ठीक लग रहा है?
नहीं नहीं, ये हमारी बात को कोई समझ कर रहा है, हमारी भाव को कोई समझ क्या रहा है। मैं यही चीज तो बताना चाह रहा हूँ, यही चीज तो बता रहा हूँ, जिस प्रकार से पूरे देश का माहौल ये बड़े बड़े मुल्लों ने, बड़े बड़े मौलवी ने, बड़े बड़े धर्म गुरुओं ने खराब करके रखा है। और खराब इतना कर दिया कि भाई मंदिर होता है भजन पूजा पाठ के लिए, इबादत के लिए, मस्जिद होती है इबादत के लिए।
एक सेकंड राजूदास जी, तो आप बदले की भावना रखते हैं ना?
नहीं, बदले की भावना नहीं।
तो
सनातन धर्म संस्कृति कभी बदले का भावना नहीं रखता। हमने तो वसुधैव कुटुंबकम की बात किया, हमने तो सर्वभौमत्व की बात किया, हमने तो जब आरती करने के बाद धर्म की जय बोला। ये थोड़ी कहा सनातन धर्म की जय हो, धर्म की जय हो, अधर्म का नाश हो, प्राणियों में सद्भावना हो, विश्व का कल्याण हो, विश्व बंधुत्व की भावना हमारे पास है। हमको जितना छला गया, हमारे सनातन धर्म संस्कृति को जितनी गाली दिया गया, जितनी हिंदू देवी देवताओं को गाली दी गई, उतना तो किसी को नहीं दिया गया। मैं तो यही कहा ना, आप किस रास्ते को ले जाना चाहते हो?
महंत राजूदास जी, ये टिट फॉर टैट एक्शन का ही प्रॉब्लम है. I want to bring in Deepa Ishwar also on this. Deepa, yesterday when you joined us, we had a long conversation about this poster, about the entire controversy, about tolerance on one side, tolerance on the other, outrage on the one side, outrage on the other. In this case too, would you agree with me that if action is taken in one case, action should be taken in the other as well? At no point can we accept these kind of incendiary, violent calls.
Yes, I mean, I'm totally, surprised and shocked at what has happened right now, in the sense that, how can you be selective when it comes to reaction, or when it comes to like religious sentiments, that, one community should always continue to be tolerating about it, while the other communities, it's okay to, that, okay, certain communities are untouchable. You cannot afford to like, take their names anywhere without respect. But some communities, it's okay, kuch bhi chalta hai. I do not understand how is it possible. And if the country calls the Hindu community as intolerant, then I guess this is the time that you have to be intolerant. We are done with being tolerant, and whatever we've done so far is like, we portrayed that we are a very tolerant religion, we are inclusive. We don't even call ourselves a religion, we call ourselves a way of life. But today, I think, if we are, in certain situations, we have to be tolerant. We have to put across the point firmly so that such incidents do not repeat in future. And the fact that makes us completely irritated and outraged is the fact that this woman who's made this poster has not even come forward.
One second, Deepa. Yeah. Deepa, yes, I understand your outrage over the poster, but does it validate these kind of calls for violence against the filmmaker? Does it validate any call for violence or provocation at a time when we know things are so sensitive in the country?
I'm very sorry, ma'am, but I have to say that, when you purposely provoke a particular religion or a particular set of people, how do you expect them to react? I mean, it's enough of tolerating, right? I mean, see, I'm somebody
who... So you're saying, Deepa, you're saying that, it's okay that he said this, that he said Sanatan se juda, it's okay. It's understandable, the sentiment.
Yes, what I'm saying is that I'm not saying it's okay, but what I'm saying is it's not something that we should, at this point when the entire nation stands undivided on the fact that this was extremely unfair on the Hindu community, if there is a set of people who feel extremely violent against this, then I do not understand how we can completely...
No, the problem is, Deepa, the problem is, yes, as a nation, as you're saying, everyone's outraged over the poster, we're all equally outraged over any violence, any provocation, any comment that's made by any responsible leader, knowing full well the situation. If we are going to outrage over posters, if we are going to outrage over comments, we have to outrage over this as well. There's been action against people who already used this term, Sanatan se juda. That can't be selective either. And that is the point. Ifra Jan, spokesperson of the NC, is also joining us on this broadcast. Ifra, what's your comment on this? Do you believe action is selective here?
See, if you look at the past couple of years and past all years, actually people from all communities have been outraging over their sentiments getting hurt, and they've actually lodged FIRs against everybody. So there really is no one community here that outrages all the time and gets FIRs lodged against the other, if you actually look at the data. Number two, even if you do, number two, there cannot be, I actually agree with Ms. Deepa when she says that you cannot be allowed to criticize one religion and not allowed to criticize another religion. Either it's okay to completely legalize free speech and say, go ahead and say whatever you want, or all sentiments have to be equally respected. I actually agree. But to say that, okay, now because my sentiments have been provoked, I can come out and I can actually commit a crime which is of clearly inciting people to commit violence, that is abhorrent. Because you cannot commit a crime, you cannot take the place of the state and therefore decide that you will decide on behalf of the state what to do. You are not the state and nobody in our country is the state. Therefore, any such call for provocation, whether it was the horrible, horrible comments like Sanatan se juda after the Nupur Sharma episode, or the kind of comments we have seen today, even when I want to remind you that there was a bounty put even on Deepika Padukone's head at one point and said, if somebody gives me her head, I would give so much money. All such calls need to be responded with the might of the law.
Okay.
The state cannot decide that it's okay here if somebody incites violence and it's not okay if somebody else incites violence.
Deepa wants to respond to your point. Deepa, go ahead. And then I'll bring in Mr. Vikram Singh as well.
Ma'am, one of the biggest protests that happened in recent times was the Sabrimala protest, where, you know, women were not allowed. I mean, young women were not allowed, and that was the biggest protest. Even that was, you know, we headed it and we led it in a very peaceful fashion with that's what we wanted, okay? But of course, there will always be people who have different levels of temperaments who come together. So we always are against violence. We don't want that. But all I'm saying, let me please clarify. All I'm saying is that we are so provoked today. We are so touchy right now, and rightfully so for the right reason. That if there is a community or if there is a set of people who uses such words out of the outrage, it cannot be seen as they're going to do that tomorrow. It is an outburst of their rage, and that should be seen in that sense. I'm just saying it doesn't mean that you go out and have a bloodshed out there. It means, you know, they're just expressing their anger. Now, I have a good point to say that, you know, this woman's film entirely, the documentary, it should be banned, it should be boycotted. We should just throw rotten tomatoes at it. I feel like being violent myself, but that doesn't mean I'm actually going to do that. It only means
Deepa, the problem is you have better sense. There are other people who get provoked and act. Now, who will be responsible or answerable for that?
The problem here, Ms. Deepa, is not you. You have all the right in the country to feel provoked, to feel outraged, to say whatever you want to. In fact, the best response to free speech is actually free speech. But we are talking about this particular person here who actually incites violence and says that, okay, I am going to behead the filmmaker. That is where we draw a line. And that is what we say that it's not okay. Coming to your constant comment that we've been peaceful. Actually, if we look at the data from past couple of years, whether we have seen deaths because somebody committed blasphemy and the person was in turn murdered, whether the Amravati killing, or so many lynchings. Unfortunately, I'm not very sure if any religious community, any person from any particular state, any linguistic, any regional community can claim to be peaceful anymore. Okay. So we have actually seen deaths and murderers come from all community. And instead of constantly shouting our people, we need to stand up and say, okay, enough is enough.
I want to bring in Mr. Vikram Singh, former DGP of Uttar Pradesh, security expert also. Mr. Vikram Singh, good evening. The law is equal for all, but the worry here is that simply enough isn't being done to tackle these kind of issues of provocative statements being made. That's where it starts. That's the seed, and that's what resorts endlessly to violence.
Akshita, good evening, and good evening to all fellow panelists. Raju ji, pranam. What I would say, that being the oldest man in the panel, I would say, let us get over this mass hysteria and retain our sanity once and for all. And the loose cannons and the motor mouths have always been, but never was there an opportunity for the loose cannons and the motor mouths to get this undeserved publicity. Politicians, actors, actresses, and nobodies who had absolutely no place in society, taking the shortcut and short-circuiting their so-called gateway to success and fame. Well, this is totally uncalled for. Now coming down to robust policing. My strong recommendation to all states would be to identify all the hate mongers, all the switches of all communities, put them into fast-track courts and decide their matters in 30 days. Prosecute them under 116, 103, 151 of the CRPC. First put them behind bars for a week and let the cases come down and be decided, and the harshest possible penalty. Nobody has a right to stigmatize or use loose sentences or derogatory words and sentiments in respect of the Prophet, in respect of gods and goddesses, whoever is held holy by any faith. This is non-negotiable. And what is non-negotiable, make no mistake about it, the state and the police have a duty. Let them be put across to fast-track courts and given not retributive, but exemplary punishment promptly. Certainty of punishment is the biggest deterrent to crime. In spite of that, there may be certain people who may have some kind of a bravado who may continue, but then there would be a stronger dose of medicine for the die-hard perverts. And that is where I have never felt helpless. I have seen and I know what I'm talking about. If the might of the law will come down like a ton of bricks, rest assured, all this nonsense will die down.
Very, very true. And that's clearly the need of the hour. Final comments from Mahant Raju Das. Raju Das ji, jaise aapne suna, sab bol rahe hai कि the kind of comments that are made for violence, it's simply not okay. आपने बोला कि आपका मतलब नहीं था सरतन से जुदा, कुछ violence के लिए. अगर कुछ हुआ कल, आपका क्या अपील है लोगों से, जब ऐसे स्थिति है हालात में देश भर कि एक कमेंट से पूरा आग बढ़ गया?
नहीं, पहले तो मैं निवेदन करूंगा, सभी को धन्यवाद, आभार है। और कभी सनातन धर्म संस्कृति ने ऐसे भाव ही नहीं रखा। हम तो पहले ही कहा कि सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे संतु निरामय। धर्म नगरी अयोध्या है, अयोध्या में हनुमान गढ़ी, राम जन्मभूमि, नागेश्वर नाथ, चियेश्वर नाथ, काली राम, इसके बीच में 17 मस्जिद है। 17 मस्जिद के बीच में मैक्सिमम 4-5 मस्जिद के आसपास ही कुछ मुसलमान होंगे, बाकी चारों तरफ मंदिर है, बीच में मस्जिद है। आज तक किसी मौलवी का हमने दाढ़ी नहीं पकड़ी, आज तक कभी माइक नहीं उतारा, आज तक किसी भी मस्जिद पे किसी संतों ने, किसी धर्म गुरुओं ने, किसी हिंदुओं ने बम, कट्टे और गोले नहीं फेंके। लेकिन मैं पूछना चाहता हूँ, जिस प्रकार से, चलो ठीक है, नुपुर शर्मा जी ने किसी, अगर उनके सनातन धर्म संस्कृति के बारे में किसी ने उल्टा सीधा कहा तो उन्होंने जवाब दिया, तो ये देश संविधान से चलता, तालिबान से नहीं चलेगा, सरतन से जुदा से नहीं चलेगा, तलवार की नोक पे नहीं चलेगा।
अभी भी वही है ना, अभी भी वही है ना राजू दास जी कि सरतन से जुदा से नहीं चलेगा,
मैं यही चीज
नहीं चलेगा। ऐसे शब्द बिल्कुल इस्तेमाल नहीं यूज करना चाहिए है।
मैं थोड़ा सा समय लूंगा, ज्यादा नहीं, ज्यादा। मैं अपनी बात को तुरंत समाप्त कर दूं। मैं यही चीज कहा कि पूरा देश का माहौल लोगों ने खराब करके रखा है लीना जी, और आप अभी तत्काल में हमारे आराध्य के बारे में, शक्ति के बारे में आप ऐसा आपने ये जो चलाया, तो क्या है, नौजवानों के मन की मानसिकता क्या होगी? क्या आप ये स्थिति उत्पन्न करना चाहते हो?
Okay, Raju Das ji, thank you for joining us here on India Today. I'd like to thank Mr. Vikram Singh, Deepa Ishwar as well as Ifra Jan for joining us here on To The Point. It's very simple. Whatever religion it is, if we're going to outrage, it must be equal. Like I said, the law is equal for all. Anyone who resorts to a provocative call using terms like Sartan Se Juda, the strictest action should be taken against them. Make an example of them, so nobody resorts to those kind of comments at such a sensitive time. Thank you for tuning in. Good night.